Part 2. 6. Inside your prospect's mind, what makes people read, want, believe? You have now built your headline. You now have a means of stopping your prospect, of bringing to a momentary halt all the diverse activities of his mind, of focusing his attention, at least for a moment, on a single thought. This is the job that you have designed your headline to do, not to sell, or identify your product, or even mention the need or desire that your product satisfies, but simply and solely to flag down your prospect and get him to read your first paragraph. From that moment on, your body copy does the selling. It does this by altering your prospect's vision of reality. It creates a new world for your prospect, a world in which your product emerges as the fulfillment of the dominant desire that caused this man to respond to your headline. To create this world, your copy must expand or alter one or more of the three dimensions of his already existing mental world. This is the task of the remainder of your ad. Your copy must be long enough to accomplish this change, and the length of your ad will depend on three factors. First, how much copy you need to build his desire for that product and everything that product can do for him to its greatest possible strength. Second, how much additional copy you need to make him feel both comfortable and complimented by the product, to enable him to visualize that product as a part of the life structure that he has built and is building for himself. And, finally, how much additional copy you need to make him believe what you have said to compensate for his already existing prejudices and beliefs. The answers to these three questions determine not only the length of your ad, but also its structure, its development, its style and its pace. Each of these questions relates to a separate dimension of your prospect's mind, different ways he has of arranging thoughts and feelings. In this chapter, we will examine these three dimensions briefly, and sketch in what ways, and to what extent, you can alter or expand them through your ad. And then, in the following chapters, we will detail these mechanisms of persuasion thoroughly, along with the most effective techniques of presenting them. And then, in the last chapter, we will try to weave them together into a simple, straight line, logical progression of images leading your reader from the headline, through the product, to the actual purchase. Let us start with these three dimensions of thought and feeling. 1. Desires. These are the wants, needs, cravings, thirsts, hungers, lusts, etc. that drive your prospect through life. They are physical, such as the desire to be thin, or strong, or healthy, or free from acne, corns, bad breath, or what have you. They are material, such as the desire to possess money, or a big car, or a beautiful dress. They are sensual, such as the thirst for a cold glass of beer, or the need for a tired body to stretch out on a soft bed. They have, of course, tremendous driving power. And they already exist. You cannot create them, diminish them, or battle them. But you can expand them, sharpen them, channel them, and give them a goal. And this is your primary task as a copywriter. Your first task, and in some ads your only task, is to make your prospect want. To sharpen his desire. To picture every moment of its fulfillment. To let him see it, feel it, touch it, sit in it, listen to his friends rave about it. To make him visualize the wonderful new world your product offers him so strongly that he practically lives in it, and then, to offer him that product. The method of doing this intensification will be discussed in the next chapter. 2. Identifications. These are the roles your prospect wants to play in life, and the personality traits he wants your product to help him build, or project. These longings for identification, longings for a sharply defined personality, longings for social status are, of course, not material or physical or sensual at all. They complement and intensify the physical desires, add another dimension to them by making each purchase serve a double duty. Thus, not only does a woman buy low-calorie food to become thin, but in so doing she also builds again a radiant, attractive, youthful personality. And not only does a man buy a car for the power, speed and transportation it will give him, but equally as much for the projection of prestige, success and ready cash to burn that this purchase communicates to his neighbors. Call them what you will: goals, hopes, dreams, ambitions, envies, admirations, fantasies or objectives. These subtle, symbolic, never openly spoken projections of our own self-images are immensely powerful sales forces. Your task is to put them directly behind your product. To make him feel the prestigious and select group he joins when he becomes a user of that product. To picture for him the people who live in your product's world today. 3. Beliefs. These are the opinions, attitudes, prejudices, fragments of knowledge and conceptions of reality that your prospect lives by. This is the world of emotionalized reason that he inhabits, the way he accepts or rejects facts, and builds up his universe, the types of thinking he uses to arrive at decisions, the ideas and values, which give him comfort, and which he believes are permanent and true. These ideas may be shallow or profound, valid or false, perfectly logical or mere wishful thinking. But it is not advertising's mission to argue with them. And no one advertiser can change them. Advertising is not education, it does not have society as its sponsor, nor does it have the years of time that are given to education to produce results. Advertising, like science, must accept reality as it exists, not as it might wish it to exist. Only then can it alter reality, not by smashing into it head-on, but by exploiting its tendencies, and giving direction to its energies. Believing is a process of fitting new facts into certain established patterns of thought and conviction. People believe in certain ways. These beliefs form a filter, through which your product information must pass or be rejected. And their already established patterns of reasoning create habit channels, along which your copy must build its conviction or die. You start with these beliefs as a base. You build up from them by using his kind of logic, not your own, to prove that your product satisfies his desires, to prove that your product works, to prove that his kind of people rely on your product, to prove that no other product satisfies his needs as well. The mechanisms for doing this are shown in chapters 9 and 10. There you have them. Desires. Identifications. Beliefs. Each of them composed of equal parts of emotion and thought. The three dimensions of your prospect's mind, the raw materials with which you will work. To study them, we shall deal with each of them separately. But, in actually writing your ad, of course, you will weave them into each other to create a simple, fluid path of thought from the beginning to the end of your ad. This technique blending and reinforcement will be the subject of Chapter 14. 7. The first technique of breakthrough copy, intensification. 13 ways to strengthen desire. The force that creates sales, that powers our present economy, is desire. Mass desire, spread among millions of men and women. And the art of salesmanship, fundamentally and primarily, is expanding this desire. Expanding it horizontally, among more and more people. Expanding it vertically by sharpening and magnifying it by building it to such a pitch that it overcomes the obstacles of skepticism, lethargy and price, and results in the sale. Advertising is salesmanship in print. Therefore, above everything else, advertising is the literature of desire. It is society's encyclopedia of dreams. Our 20th century wish book. Advertising gives form and content to desire. It provides it with a goal. These desire. Part 2b. These desires, as they exist in the mind of your prospect today, are indistinct. They are blurs, hazy, ambiguous, not yet crystallized into words or images. In most cases, they are simply vague emotions, without compulsion or direction. And as such, they have only a fraction of their true potential power. Your job is to fill out these vague desires with concrete images, to show your prospect every possible way that they can be fulfilled, to multiply their strength by the number of satisfactions that you can suggest to achieve them. A copywriter's first qualifications are imagination and enthusiasm. You're literally the script writer for your prospect's dreams. You are the chronicler of his future. Your job is to show him in minute detail all the tomorrows that your product makes possible for him. This is the core of advertising, its fundamental function. To take unformulated desire and translate it into one vivid scene of fulfillment after another. To add the appeal of concrete satisfaction after satisfaction to the basic drive of that desire. To make sure that your prospect realizes everything, that he is getting everything, that he is now leaving behind him everything that he may possibly be missing. The sharper you can draw your pictures and the greater the number of them that you can legitimately present, the more your prospect will demand your product, and the less important will seem your price. How much space can you give to this process of intensification? This depends on two factors: the amount of space allotted to you for the entire ad, and the number of ways you can present your images, without giving the feeling of repetition or boredom. First of all, different media demand different treatments. For example, catalogs, small space newspaper and magazine advertising, radio and television strictly limit the number of words given to you to draw your images. To fit your message into their structures, you must use either or both of two techniques. The first is compression, the boiling down of projections and images into a few keywords. And the second is the campaign, the repetition of these keywords over and over again, along with a progression of embellishments and differentiations through an entire series of advertisements. We shall see how this is done, in detail, at the end of this chapter. On the other hand, large space newspaper and magazine advertising and especially direct mail give you adequate room, in most cases, to present a full story in these media. The decision as to length depends far more on the second factor, the number of ways you can present your images, without giving the feeling of repetition or boredom. No matter what you do, your prospect will take with him only one basic idea, one dominant image from your ad. But with every additional new and different way that you can present that idea, it becomes sharper and more real in your prospect's mind, and it builds up more and more emotional weight. Thus the problem becomes one of perspective, of fresh viewpoints, of new and different detail. Of walking around your product in your imagination, and presenting it to your prospect in every way in which it enters his life. You are working against two opposing forces. The first, as in your headline, is the amount of material which has already been presented to your prospect about similar products in other ads. There are stages of market sophistication to be dealt with in body copy as well as in your headline. If your prospect has read the same phraseology before, he will be bored by it, no matter where he encounters it again. And the second obstacle is the phraseology of your own ad. Once you have presented your basic fulfillment in a certain way, then you must vary your viewpoint in your second description, or not present it again. Otherwise you will lose your reader in the middle of your ad. You cannot repeat, but you can reinforce. And every time the same basic promise is given a fresh setting for your prospect, it reinforces the descriptions that went before it, and makes your prospect that much more determined to participate. The presenting of a series of fresh, new and different fulfillments for your prospect's dominant desire. Our first mechanism of persuasion is called intensification. It takes many forms, with many more certainly to be invented. We will list some of them here, giving the complete copy examples, to show how they have been worked out, to deal with specific copy problems. Our illustrations in this part of the book will be drawn mostly from mail order. The reason for this is simple. Mail order advertising must accomplish its sale from a single ad, without relying on the cumulative force of the campaign, and without help from product display or salespeople. Therefore, mail order tries to present as much of the complete story as possible at one time. These same techniques apply equally well to all forms of advertising. But they are usually quite compressed, and their purpose and structure was not quite so apparent. Here are these techniques of intensification. Your first presentation of your claims. 1. First present the product or the satisfaction it gives directly, bluntly, by a thorough, completely detailed description of its appearance or the results it gives. For example, this rose ad, more roses than you ever saw on any rose bush. Leading Eastern Agricultural College reports, this fabulous rose variety produced 500 blooms in June. 1,523 more blooms in July. 1,616 more blooms in August. 437 more blooms in September. 4,076 roses all from one single plant. Can you imagine the fantastic beauty of a rose bush that can easily give you more than 4,000 roses from June to September, and then keeps on blooming heavily right up into frost? Can you imagine the fantastic thrill of walking into your garden and actually picking 3 dozen, even 4 dozen roses a day from a single plant, day after day, week after week, and still leave gigantic clusters of bloom on each single plant? Colorful, fragrant roses almost as large as the most expensive Brit teas, that blooming by the hundreds at one single time. On one single bush. Cherry pink 3-inch roses overlaid with tinges of red that deepen in fire and brilliance as the blossoms unfold to reveal a dazzling gold splash on their petals. Roses that burst into living walls of blossoms that flame again and again into exquisite masses of bloom in June, July, August, September, October, November, and often stay in bloom weeks after the first snows have fallen. This is the rose with such fantastic blooming power that it will actually give you huge clusters of 10, 12, even 15 flowers on a single stem, and produce those clusters in solid masses of bloom. Clusters as large as both of your outstretched hands put together. Clusters that actually measure up to 1 full foot across. Each stem a complete floral bouquet in itself. That gives you an average of more than 50 new roses day after day, week after week, for 8, 9, even 10 weeks in a row during the hot dog days of summer. Enough roses to fill every room in your house with color and fragrance all summer long. Enough roses to drench your terrace with beauty, to sweep around your home and flood your beds, your borders, your walks, your driveway with solid, living walls of roses all summer long. With just a few plants. And this is the rose you can have blooming in your garden now and for years to come, that will make your grounds the garden showplace of the neighborhood, if you accept this extraordinary flower offer now. Or, as another example, this description of the results of a Christmas flashlight projector that shows colored slides of the Bible. You take out the amazing invention we send you. You simply switch it on. And suddenly even person in the room draws in his breath in excitement and admiration. For there before you on that living room wall projected 4 feet wide by 3 feet tall is one of the most beautiful pictures you have ever seen. Before your Eve so real that you can practically reach out and touch her is the Virgin Mary holding the infant Jesus in her arms. The picture actually glows with exquisite color. You can see every magnificent detail. The animals huddled around the manger. The tenderness in the Virgin's eaves. The smile on the infant's face. It's almost as though you were actually there. Suddenly all the wonderful tales your children have heard. All the meaning and glory of Christmas come alive before your children's eaves. Life-sized. As tall as your children. Scene after scene parades before them on their living room wall. They actually see the angel of God announcing the birth to the shepherds. They witness the star of Bethlehem rising over the world. They stand side by side with the 3 wise men in silent adoration. Before their very eyes, they see Christ grow to maturity. They watch him astound the elders of the temple as a small child. They thrill to his first meeting with John the Baptist. They are present at the Sermon on the Mount. They witness each of the miracles, see with their own eyes Jesus calming the storm, teaching Peter to walk on the water, raising Lazarus from the dead. Can there be any more thrilling experience? Suddenly every sermon they have ever heard, every book they have ever read, every prayer they have ever learned, takes on new meaning and beauty for them. This is probably the most thrilling hour you will ever spend with your children. They will ask you to repeat it time and time again. These magnificent pictures will continue to thrill and astound, and instruct them for years to come. Or, as another example, this description of the outward appearance of a giant flying plastic model jet. Yes. Just imagine the expression on your children's faces when they walk into your living room just 1 week from today and suddenly see this magnificent model airplane standing in front of them on the living room table. Here is a gigantic, 3-dimensional, all-plastic model airplane resting securely on its own triple landing gear and so huge that its tail section alone stands 6 full inches from the table. This magnificent model airplane proudly bears the official colors of Pan American Airways. Its wings and engines are a dazzling silver. Its fuselage is a gleaming white with a brilliant blue stripe stretching back 21 inches along the entire length of the bod. And stamped on both sides of the huge rudder is the Pan American world globe and the American flag above it. Ready to identify this plane anywhere she goes. Both the wings and the tail section are slanted diagonally back, ready to cut through the air at 600 scale miles an hour. And suspended beneath the wings are the 4 huge engines, each as long and as thick as your child's fingers, each with its own jet sound simulator, to give your child thrill after thrill after thrill, when he actually flies this breathtaking model himself. Put the claims in action too. Now that you have presented your main description, you are ready to expand the image. One of the most effective ways to do this is to put the product in action for your reader. To show, not only how the product looks, and what benefits it gives the reader, but exactly how it does this. As one example, let's continue with our model jet airplane ad. No fuel. No danger. No crack-ups. Yet it flies 600 scale miles an hour, all under your complete control. Pick this magnificent plastic model up from the table and hand it to your child. While he holds it, simply attach the control line, as we show you, to the left wing. Then suspend the model from this control line, and begin slowly to swing it through the air. Before your astonished eyes, you will see one of the most thrilling sights of your entire life. This model is perfectly designed for high speed. As soon as it picks up power from the motion of your hand, it will lift up its nose, its wings will begin to cut through the air, it will flash upward and streak ahead of you. As you give it more and more line, it will turn wider and wider. Fly faster and faster. You can fly it in circles only 5 feet wide, or you can take it outdoors and fly it in gigantic arcs 100 feet wide, the size of an entire lot. You can make this plane soar upward, stall at fantastic heights, dive toward the ground, and then pick up speed and flash upward again in a breathtaking rescue. You can spiral this magnificent model down into a perfect landing. You can fly 2 or more planes in formation. You can have jet races. You can have an entire fleet of breathtaking models flown by every member of your family, and you can have them for only $1 a piece, less than ONEFIFTH the price you'd pay for a plastic model of this size and performance. Or, as another example, this product in action description from a brochure selling a self-propelled fish lure. Think of it. To fuel up this amazing, live-action lure, all you do is this. Simply snap open the fuel chamber, pour in the absolutely harmless fuel, and close the fuel chamber again. Simply cast or lower that power-packed lure into fresh or salt water, and get set for the fishing thrill of your life. For perhaps 1 minute, the lure will float quietly on the surface of the water. But then that water will reach the fuel charge inside the lure, will seem to shudder for a second, and then it will spring dramatically to life. The air around it will be filled with the buzzing sound of a dying bee. Instantly, the nose of the lure will point downward, and it will begin its first descent. Slowly, jerkily, like a maimed minnow, it will swim noisily downward, buzzing and humming, traveling about 9 feet every 15 seconds. If no fish intercepts it, it will then automatically stop its descent, slowly raise up its nose, and begin its irresistible climb to the surface again. And again. And again. Tirelessly, hour after hour, lengthening out the reach of your own casts. Roaming restlessly o'er your ivory foot of water beneath you, even on a slack line and when your boat is tied up high and when you're curled up on the dock, sound asleep. And driving the fish around you into such a frenzy with its swimming and its buzz.